What's up, guys? My name is Liz, and we're doing our team interview.
Hey, I'm Alexa, and this is our team interview.
Hey, I'm Allison. This is our team interview.
Kira, and this is still our team interview.
So let's go to slide number 1.
What is the scientific notation for the Andromeda galaxy?
Well, thank you for asking, Alexa. The scientific notation is a simplified way to write large or small numbers. And so for the Andromeda galaxy, we had to make these charts over here. And as you can see, the speed is 250,000 miles per hour, which is really fast. So the way that you would make that into a scientific notation would be to condense the number. So 250,000 equals 2.5, and then you would multiply that by 10, and you would count the zeros, which there are 5 zeros. So you would move the decimal place over 5 places to the left, and then when there's only 1 unit, which is the non-zero, which would be the 10.5, you're left with the positive decimal notation of 2.5. Allison, can you explain how bar graphs can be created to be misleading?
Sure. So in creating a bar graph, if the y-axis doesn't start at 0, the information can become misleading that way. So as you can see in the unemployment rate percentages between the presidents for Clinton and Bush, in the first, on the top graph, it shows a huge difference when really the numbers are only for Clinton 5.2% unemployment rate percent, and Bush has 5.18%, which is not a big difference. So by zeroing out that y-axis, then as illustrated on the graph at the bottom, you're actually showing your correct data, which is not a huge difference between the two. And then with the pie chart, they can be created to be misleading by simply being created wrong. Like in the area funding, at the top shows where the news put their bar graph. And then when we recreated the bar graph in class, it showed that the city actually did much more than just half, as illustrated by the graph above. So Sierra, what's the difference between inductive and deductive reasoning?
Okay, thank you for asking. So inductive and deductive reasoning was a concept that we looked at on our homework quite a bit. An example was using these blocks, the building blocks, using inductive reasoning, where you look at a pattern and you try to figure out how the pattern goes to come up with an answer. Whereas deductive reasoning uses already known facts, rules, or definitions to arrive at a conclusion.
Sorry.
Okay, Alexa, what does this chart say about the presidents and the unemployment rate while they were in office?
This could actually go back to the one about the misleading bar graphs because kind of like Allison said, there's not that big of a difference in the percentages when Bush was in office and Clinton was in office. But as you can see on this chart, it shows like Clinton's years were like way higher than Bush's, and really they weren't that big of a difference. What is the percentage of Americans that will likely have type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and be obese?
Well, for the percentage of obesity, we use metric measurement, which is just your standard centimeters, inches, grams, milliliters form of measuring. So Americans will likely have type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and be obese is 8.5%, which is in that middle portion of all 3 of the circles. When measuring, we use the metric system. So the percentage can be converted into a fraction. So 8.5 is the conversion of the 8.5%. So 8.5 of the population of America as a whole will be obese and have type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure. Allison, determining the meaning in a set of data. What does this mean and how is it found?
Okay, so the mean is just another word for the average. So what we're just looking for is the average in a set of data. So the way you find this is you add all of the numbers together from your data sample. And in this example, I used the height of Army recruits that we did in our homework. And I just added all those together. That equals to 651. Then you divide that by the count of the data. So there are 9 data samples here. So we're just taking the total of that sum and we divide it by 9. And that's how we find the average, or in other words, mean. Sierra, why can't the probability of something be 113%?
Okay, so this was another like a trick question from our homework problems. We looked at probability quite a bit, and it's obviously pretty simple. It can only be as low as 0 or as high as 100%. You know, in some cases, things can be 113%, but not with probability, because something can only be 100% likely to happen if it's going to happen. So, Alexa, what is this photo an example of?
This was also something off of our homework when we were doing like the earth and the speed of the body movements and things. And this was an example of how large the earth is compared to things that, you know, most people would think of as large, kind of like a lot of people think the Eiffel Tower is large, the Titanic was so big, and things like that. But these things compared to how big the earth is actually seem quite small. What was the actual percentage that the mysterious stranger donated to the arena funding?
Well, funny you should ask, because Allison kind of went over this a little bit. So with the graph, the pie chart, a pie chart is actually divided into sections that represent a whole. So the actual percentage that the mysterious stranger donated when Fox News displays it doesn't a big piece. But then when you actually do it from 0, the mysterious stranger, which is the unknown portion on the graph, is just a very, very tiny piece of pie instead of a medium-sized piece of pie. Allison, what is skewed data?
So skewed data happens when the median and the mean are different. So a graph most often becomes skewed by outliers. When a distribution becomes negatively skewed, the data points fall to the higher side of the scale, and there are very few lower data points. But if a distribution becomes positively skewed, then the mean is greater than the median. So in the example of the income given to us in the week 2 homework of the household income, because there was that sudden jump in percentage of families at a higher than $200,000 income, that threw off the entire curve of the chart and made it skew to the left. Sierra, how do you explain how you determined your future financial budget and how you felt about it?
So we did a problem looking at what our future budget will be like in 5 years. I looked at what my salary should be about and what my bills will be like hypothetically. And we made a chart, made a graph. I was pleasantly surprised to see that I should be okay financially, because with the career I've chosen, I'm not really in it for the money, but you know, everyone has to pay their bills and stuff. So it was a good problem to do, to plan ahead for 5 years, and hopefully I'll be able to take a few trips and stuff here and there. So Alexa, what can the American people do to change these health statistics numbers that are not very good?
Well, honestly, if the American people would just change their diets, I think they would be pleasantly surprised at what natural eating and healthy eating can do for someone. I'm in several like healthy food classes and stuff to finish out my degree right now, and we've just learned so much about like the Mediterranean diet and eating whole grains and more fruits and vegetables. And if people would just follow that, I believe that these numbers could even be decreased by about 50%, just because of so much health benefits come from like natural eating.
Definitely.
What is the range of the height of random mall shoppers?
Oh, well, that is a good question. So, range is the difference between the lowest and highest values. So for our homework, what you do to find the range is 43 is going to be the range, because you subtract the lowest number, which would be 34, from the largest number, which is 77, and then you get 43. So that's the range. Allison, how does your dream financial report reflect your goals?
So when making this, I researched what salary I would make if I got the promotions that I'm working towards, and I reflected that salary in my financial report. I also tailored my budget by researching how much my dream home and my dream location would cost and inflating my bills accordingly. Additionally, I included some savings plans, which is something that I don't have at the moment, but I'd love to incorporate into my budget when I'm able to better afford it. Okay, Sierra, how would your time management graphs differ between days, work days, and days off?
Okay, so this was a little bit more on the future financial budget. So you have to think about, obviously your days are different when you're working and not working. So when you're working, a majority of your day goes to work, and a little bit you still have to incorporate, gym and work, food preparation, time with your family, answering emails, your commute, and all of that. But your day off, still a little bit of work because everyone's going to have work emails and stuff, but you get more time to hang out with your family or shop or run errands or do whatever. So these are the two different graphs and how they differ. Alexa, based on this graph, who had the highest bowling scores?
Well, as you can see, it shows that Emily and Diana, they were really close together. I would probably say Emily had the better bowling scores, but just because those two are so much alike, I'm not really sure I would have a definite answer as to which one. What's the median for the amount of hours of sleep?
Not enough. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
So for the median is the middle value in the list of numbers, which you can see is the 6.7, and I don't know why I'm pointing at my screen because you can all see this. You notice the graph starts from left to right, and in order to find this, you would count towards the center of the number, and then each side has an equal amount, thus the center would be 6.7 hours. What is a bell graph?
Well, I'm glad you asked. A bell graph is a bell-shaped curve that represents the distribution values, as you can see here.
It's quite lovely.
Sierra, explain an example of mutually exclusive events, please.
Okay, so mutually exclusive events are events that cannot happen simultaneously. This graph that I have is an example of events that are mutually exclusive, or are not, I'm sorry, because they can occur at the same time. For example, if you're obese, you can also have high blood pressure or type 2 diabetes. Those all can occur. But something that's mutually exclusive cannot both occur at the same time, which I don't have a good example of. Alexa, according to this pie chart, who was the biggest contributor?
It shows that the city was the biggest contributor. What is the mode for the height of the Army recruits in inches?
The number that appears the most often in a set of numbers. If you look on this chart, you're going to see that 72 is listed twice. Thus, the mode in the Army recruit in inches is going to be 72.
What graph would you use to show the difference in heights of various small shoppers?
A few different graphs to show the very different heights of various small shoppers. In this case, we used a line graph because it's just the simplest way to show the different heights of the various Army recruits. Alexa, what does this chart tell us about the people in the Army and their heights?
This chart kind of tells us a few different things because we've touched on it about how they their heights were measured in inches, and you can see it goes from like 80 to 75 to 66, and then we've used this line graph to just kind of touch. I don't know why I'm pointing at it, but to just kind of touch to know like where on the graph each one of them's height was, and yeah.
Yeah, take it away, Liz.
Okay, well, with that being said, we've all learned a lot. We've had frustrating times. I'm pretty sure most of us have cried, or at least I've cried over math, and that's never happened. But I've also learned a lot, and I've laughed a lot with math. So I'm looking forward to our next team adventure, and it's going to be awesome. And as Miss Benzie says, I rock plus you rock, which means
We rock.
We rock.
Rock.